today I am joined by a very, very special guest. And this special guest is Jan, aka my mum. So thank you, Mum, for joining us today. Just for those of you who don't know my mum, she is based in Bath, and she has been for the last 27 years a professional counsellor. She runs a counselling agency called Focus Counselling, and works with clients kind of all over the southwest of England. So thank you, Mum, for joining us. And I just thought it'd be interesting today just to ask her from her kind of professional experience about a few different things, specifically around the topics of bereavement and loss and anxiety. And I think these are all areas in which I know, having spoken to people and within my own life as well over lockdown, have kind of experienced issues, feelings and emotions around these different areas. So so we just thought we'd chat today and have a little chat about it. So Mum, we want to talk today about, as I said, kind of bereavement and loss. I think probably we'll focus more on loss, but I just thought it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about bereavement and about bereavement cycle, which I know you work with clients around a lot.
Absolutely.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yes. So when we work with clients who have been grief-stricken, which means that they have lost someone to death, we work with them through the bereavement cycle. And the bereavement cycle consists of, first of all, we will see the person feeling very shocked. Then they often are angry, and then we look for them starting to readjust through the cycle, and then eventually they hopefully will come into a place of acceptance of what's happened to them. So that's what that is about.
Okay, so there might be some people here who are watching who have experienced bereavement during this process of lockdown and everything that's happened, and that's obviously really, really hard. But I think also there will be a lot of people that have experienced loss in lots of different ways. What kind of the different ways that you've seen people experiencing loss during this time?
Yes, and we have seen a huge amount of loss through this really difficult 3 months. And what we see with people with loss is, again, we see shock, and we certainly saw that at the beginning of lockdown. We were all in a state of shock, and then a lot of people were very angry because of what was going on, and then we saw, which was very interesting, people becoming fearful. And unfortunately, what led from the fear was we've seen a huge rise in anxiety in people.
And then around this whole area of anxiety, could you just speak into that a bit and what you've kind of been seeing in terms of anxiety? Yeah.
Yes, of course. So what we've seen during actually this cycle of lockdown that we've had, we've seen that people have been very fearful of, actually, are we going to get it? Am I going to give it to someone else? Am I going to die? And as we know that when we have anxiety, our final fear of all anxiety is death. And COVID has actually raised that up in people hugely significantly. And also not just for themselves, but obviously for their loved ones.
So what would you say to someone who might be watching today who has maybe experienced some of these feelings around grief, or specifically around a kind of loss and anxiety during lockdown, and now as we're coming out of lockdown? What would you say to them?
So I would say that you have to do a lot of self-care. And what we're saying to people is try and boundary your days. So don't look at the huge picture all the time. Do not watch all the news all the time and get yourself really worried. Just try and boundary the day into really good and positive things that you're doing, the people and the conversations that you're having. Actually, if you're actually going to go and see someone, really enjoy that and make the most of it. So it's very much about looking at the little things at the moment, and actually trying to take each day as it comes and not rush the process that we actually find ourselves in.
And what would you say to someone, again, watching today who potentially hasn't been through this, has not found lockdown maybe challenging in these ways, but has people around them, has maybe family members or friends that are experiencing these kind of feelings and emotions? What could you say to them in terms of the ways that we can support people in that way?
It's a very good question. I think the most important thing is that we hear them. And sometimes, that's difficult. When I talk about hearing, I talk about really hearing what they're saying, not just listening to them, but really hearing them. And also encouraging. So encouragement at this time is hugely important. So actually, when they may sound to you completely ridiculous, actually they're not being ridiculous if they don't want to go to the supermarket. For them, that's how they're feeling. So literally coming alongside and really hearing what they're saying, and speaking as truth and as positively as, sorry, I can never say that, but as positively into them as you can.
Amazing. Thanks, Mum.